you're good.
And then let me know if you have access to share your screen.
I do, and I will share in a moment.
Perfect. No, go ahead. Thank you.
Great. So in the spirit of trying to be a good neighbor, I'm here to talk about noise walls, and particularly one small section of noise wall, which is the plexiglass noise wall, which is on the east side of 35W, right over the Midtown Greenway. So we actually have two sections of these noise walls in Minneapolis on I-35W, really not much in the way of other locations in the metro. And the history behind these two walls is they're the only structure, and I'll show a picture here in a moment, kind of just setting the stage. They're the only structure that was actually crash worthy. So anything that's potentially preventing a vehicle from going over a space into an unsafe space, which would be down on the Greenway, has to be tested through the Texas Transportation Institute. So this one small section of wall, tell you what, I'll pull up and I can share one image that'll probably make this a bit easier. Let me go to image. So this is up top. Let me know if you can see my screen here when it comes up. Maybe a thumbs up from
we can see it. Yep.
Perfect. So this is up top, right? This is the section, again, on the east side of I-35W on the off-ramp there to 28th and looking east. So again, not in Whittier proper, but you do border this location. And what you see on the screen is the current issue. Obviously, we, no different than any entity, have an issue with graffiti. We do our best to remove said graffiti, but it is an awful big challenge to keep up, as you can imagine. These particular plexiglass walls, as I said, are in two locations, and they are there for a reason. They are, as I said, crash worthy and also do provide some noise mitigation, even if relatively minor, but they were put in as part of the most recent 35W 94 project. The one down over Minnehaha Creek was, of course, put in during the Crosstown project back in 2008 to 2010. What we have learned pretty quickly, particularly at the site on the Greenway, is there is a maintenance plan to these, right? We have the instructions from the manufacturer and how to remove graffiti and clean them. We follow said instructions, but they get tagged so often that it does become a problem to clean. And as you can see on the screen here, despite our best efforts, they are losing their transparency. And even in the portions we've cleaned quite a few times, are beginning to see that degradation of the material. And I got a question from our maintenance folks earlier in the year, which is, hey, Ryan, how do you think it would go over if we were interested in painting these walls? So we'll take a look at a couple of views here, but paint them the brown color you see on the other walls. In this particular location, there was a couple variables that kind of necessitated this conversation. One, to actually paint these walls, it's a bit onerous, right? You can imagine most of the spots where we have brown, they're off the right of way. People might be up there with a paintbrush and move along. If we have to do it from the road, they keep the paint wet, so to speak, and they kind of just move along. The spots on these plexiglass walls are not so easy. It takes a minimum of 2 hours in terms of like time to scrub, clean, pressure wash. You have to apply a second solvent on top of that. Sometimes we have to come back twice depending on the type of paint used. And in this particular location, it's not just one person with a paintbrush, it's 3 crash trucks, a pressure washer truck, a paint truck, and often one other truck. That's 7 people plus the actual time. So it becomes to be a pretty big deal. And we're, as you probably have observed, getting to these spots 1, maybe 2 times a year, unless there's something really incendiary on material. And so the idea was, could we just paint it? Yes, we are still expecting they would get tagged, but it would greatly speed up the process. Our folks on the road, of course, are putting themselves in danger when they're this close to 35W, so it does minimize that wear and tear. But to be honest, it's about the walls not really doing what they maybe were intended to do. I don't necessarily think the thought among this product is they're going to be getting tagged with the frequency they do, particularly at the 35W location. And so that leaves a question of, why are we here? Why am I here? 2 reasons. One, both of these walls went in during specific projects that were federally funded. So they underwent a particular review. The Minnehaha example has Minnehaha Creek over it. That has a historic district associated with it. The Greenway also has a status in the State Historic Register, and neither one of these plexiglass walls went in as specific environmental mitigation. I had a chance to connect with our environmental folks, but there was public commentary at the time at both locations and support from the park board on the southern location to pursue these walls. So it can be done from we're able to do this. We don't necessarily need to, go back to the State Historic Preservation Office or something like that. But both of these locations did have public input in support of these particular plexiglass walls. And I would say I use both of these locations frequently, both the Greenway and Minnehaha. And 1 second here.
You're good. No worries. So can you keep it down?
Well, the little dude has I'm not sure if any of you have ever had a little kid with a helmet, and they don't love having them put on and off. And so I was just giving the final taking on and off there a moment for my wife to do that. So, all right, let's go back to the ground here. This is the other view. So I just wanted to share the other side of the road. And so we are able to do it, but again, given that, and I don't know if any of you maybe commented on this project, participate. If you did, thank you. We're just trying to get some understanding of whether this would be a feeling of great onerous. And as I said, I use both these corridors a lot, probably less than you, but quite a bit. And yeah, I think you got to know they're there to look. I'm not really sure what benefit they provide from the road, to be honest. If any, I think you're going too fast, or I guess maybe you're sitting in traffic and looking over. Down from the Greenway or the creek. I think in a perfect world, if they were there, I like them from a transparent sense, but you see on the screen what they look like most of the time when I go by. And so this is the view from up top. I think probably more important would be if I share the view from the ground here. So let me pull up the last image. And so again, this is of course from Phillips, from the east side of the Greenway. From the east side of 35W, looking west towards Whittier. You see the screen up there. You see that it would be the same color. It looks a slightly different shade, but it'd be the same color brown as the rest of the noise wall along 35. When I was last night, gave the same talk down to Tangletown over the Minnehaha Greenway one, they asked a good question, which was, does MnDOT have any concerns about painting this? We didn't initially. I did put the inquiry back to our maintenance folks, whether they had a chance to talk with the installer. It does have a surface to it. It's not just like a sheet of glass. So there is a surface to it. We, again, believe it could hold the paint, but I thought that was a fair question that I wanted to look into. Tangletown didn't take exception. They also asked me just to know when we might do it. It's probably not going to happen this year at this point. And I could certainly offer that same courtesy to Whittier if you didn't take any exception to it, to just let you know, or maybe nobody cares. All those are fine options. So I will pause there. I really don't have anything else to share.
Awesome.
I can stand for any questions, any concerns, any shrugs. I will take all feedback.
Thanks for sharing, Ryan. I
actually have one.
I have a couple of questions too, but I'll let Maggie go first.
Cool. Does it have to be brown? Can it be a mural or something like that? Could the community pitch in and make it pretty? Could we hire local artists to paint over it? I feel like when there's an intentional mural, there's less likely to be graffiti versus it being brown. That doesn't really stop people from tagging it, in my opinion. So yeah, long story short.
Play a role in my. Yeah, go ahead, Ryan.
Yeah, no, great question. And I did have an email exchange with Soren from the Greenway Coalition, and he asked the same question. So 2 comments. I meant to bring that up. I apologize. Great question. So on the roadway side, which is probably less of a big deal to all of you, we would paint it brown, of course. That makes, well, I guess we shouldn't say of course. That could also be done. That's a little bit trickier. The short story is we do have a public art policy, and we do support these things in partnership with, cities or local municipalities and or local entities. It would be something that would have to be undertaken by the community, at least as things stands today. I'm not taking a position here. I'm just telling you the policy is that we don't provide funds for that, but we do support it. And that would be something I'd be happy to like help run around. I would maybe suggest, I think I'd want to get some greater clarity about what that surface can take from it. I would hate to have somebody put a lot of time into something and it just doesn't weather or age well. So I would want to look into that. But the short story is, yes, there could absolutely be a process where we could help facilitate that. My staff would typically help with that. We have a public arts group that also helps facilitate that. So slightly longer answer, but yes, that is an option that we could explore.
I agree with what Maggie's saying. I mean, what's gonna stop people from tagging it even when it's brown? You're just gonna have to go back and paint it every week or every day. My other question is just looking at the image of what you shared. As an architect, I can tell you most likely that that was a design move or an intent from a landscape side to have it look down to the greenway to see the cars going by and to feel the openness versus the block solid. I'm wondering if there's an opportunity to remove it and put a fence over there that's you could see through and nobody could tag at that point. Has that been considered as an opportunity to still have the transparency versus just having it opaque and then having to repaint it every week?
I haven't specifically, that's a good question. I haven't specifically asked that question. What I can say when I chatted with our environmental folks and briefly looked at that document myself 2 months ago before I was on leave, it was, while it wasn't put in as mitigation for, say, an impact to the greenway, it was put in as noise mitigation. And so we would be violating a commitment we made in our environmental document. So it wasn't a condition to like affect the greenway, but it was a condition related to noise. And that was the only barrier that was both crash worthy. And then the height was, again, I didn't work on the project, but the height was a balancing act between, visual impact, some noise mitigation, and crash worthiness. And so all that went in, and I don't believe that's something we could do near term.
Yeah, because the fence wouldn't stop any of that noise, but
I can double check and ask. I will add it to my note. I think that's a fair question, but my take is that's probably not achievable. We would be violating our commitments in our federal environmental document.
yeah. Awesome. Others?
Ryan, hi, my name's Peter, and I live on the east side of Whittier, so I have sound barrier wall consciousness. And I took a little walk, and I'm gonna pass this around, took a picture. This is a subject maybe for the future, but you might be interested to know, was it the park board that started to plant Virginia creeper on the mall? I don't think they would adequately fertilize the ground. They could do more, but that project really should be expanded. It's carbon capture and would beautify the neighborhood. There's so many good things about it. Maybe I'll win this.
I'll put it on there so people can see it.
I think I know the spot you're referencing there.
I think it looks like the new sound wall. That's like the wood back with plants with the vine in front of it that's gonna grow.
Peter, I believe I heard your name was Peter, right? Is that on the neighborhood side? I assume the neighborhood side of the sound wall, not our side of it, not the highway side of the sound wall.
As far as I'm concerned, it could be on both sides, but priority on the neighborhood side.
Yeah.
But from the carbon capture aspect, certainly both sides. The wood chips, it must be the park board that's doing it. Wood chips really don't fertilize the ground until they decompose. So my project would add city compost and really let the, what Virginia creeper is, it has 5 leaves, not 3 like poison ivy. I think the berries are maybe not edible. There's another choice here, which is fox grape, and people can't eat fox grapes. But we could do a lot to beautify this neighborhood, and maybe the federal government would give us money because it's environmental, aspect.
It's a good point. Thanks, Peter. Appreciate it. Yeah, something to consider, maybe plants that like vines or something that could also block it. But I don't know if you'd have that on the freeway side, but could be an opportunity. Others? Comments? You? Comments on Zoom? overall, I think it's a better strategy than leaving it the plexiglass and having to remove it every time, which sounds like you're having a lot of issues with. I think painting over it is great, but maybe looking at opportunities of how you can beautify it with more than just brown, maybe a mural, or maybe, again, the crew's gonna have to go out there weekly to have to paint it again, and so I don't know, is there an opportunity to create something nicer? So that's kind of the feedback that we're getting from you.
Yeah, appreciate that. And yeah, again, it's my job to present here, not to take opinions, but I do, use both these corridors frequently. And so I can't help but feel kind of similarly to the group. And, Peter, just one commentary there is a lot of, that's maybe a slightly strong statement. There are definitely efforts going on DOT wide, maybe less so in some locations, but certainly statewide. Like we have some initiatives. I just thought I'd share this. We have some initiatives, some pollinator initiatives, like recognizing like highway corridors can be good avenues for that. So we're trying to be a little bit more, it's a balancing act, right? We can't have too much growing in spots of our right of way, but we're trying to be a little bit more frugal in spots and or change our noxious weed strategies. And we're trying to create some of those environments and spots. And certainly, like I'll call it the non-freeway side of corridors, there are more opportunities than the freeway side. So I just wanted to throw that out there that I would say it's a slower moving ship as parts of our organization go, and funding is not rampant, but we are taking some of those initiatives on. I can give you a few examples, but just to let you know, it is something we are paying attention to where we can.
Thank you.
Awesome. Thanks, Ryan. Appreciate it. And since there's no more comments or questions, thank you for being here and presenting. We appreciate it and taking the feedback, even though you're here to present, but people always want to give their opinions. And so I think it's pretty great that you heard us. Thank you.
I will just drop my email in the chat that you can add to the notes or whatever. That way, and if somebody's listening to this later, they can reach out to me. I'm happy to take that feedback.
Can you also share with me the images that you shared with us today so I can add those to our minutes for others that would like to look past?
Absolutely. I'll take care of that here right after I sign off.
Thank you.
Good luck with your kid.
Thanks so much for making time for me on the agenda. Nice to see you all. Have a good night.
Thank you. Appreciate it. All right. So next we're gonna go back to the zero waste.
Move to safety.
Oh, they're not here yet. Let's go to the safe routes to school. Safer routes. Christian?
I am Christian Zerman, transportation planner with the city of Minneapolis within Public Works. I'm joined here by my colleague. Andrew, you want to just do, I know we already did introductions, but just a quick one here.
Andrew Degerstrom with the City Associate Transportation Planner, working with Christian on this project.
Awesome. Well, thanks for having us tonight. Excited to be here and kind of kick off this project. We've had some signage and engagement opportunities kind of ongoing so far, and we've been coordinating with Maggie a little bit already. So with that, I will share the screen. This is showing the hold on one sec. Are you seeing the full like screen presentation, or is it showing the side?
We're seeing the slides from the PowerPoint.
Okay. Oh, there it goes. Just took a second there. We're so used to using Teams. I am always thrown off when we switch to something else. Okay. All right, get out of here. Okay, so we're here for the Whittier International Safe Process School. We're calling this kind of a phase 2. There was a little bit of a smaller project that came in the other year, kind of phase 1 of this, and we'll get into that in a moment. But a little bit of background here. So the Whittier International Elementary School worked with the state. So MnDOT they lead up all of the safe routes to school plans for the schools around the state. So they developed their plan back in 2017, and just a little bit of information on that. At this particular school, we've got 15% of students that are currently walking or biking. here, and as part of that first phase of this project, the image on the right was built. This is the intersection of 26 and Grand. I'm sure you are all very familiar with this. Really, the aspect of this narrowed up the crossings. It provided a safe space for pedestrians as they crossed. Also added protection to the bikeway and enhanced the kind of sight lines that you would have crossing the street as well, so cars weren't parked directly up to that intersection. It did a lot of signal work here as well, so quite a few great kind of aspects here to make this intersection better. There was also an installment at 27th and Blaisdell, which is more of a what we call a floating bump out. They act like bump outs, they're just not connected to the existing curb line. They kind of somewhat act as the pedestrian refuge islands. There's just a little bit more work to those. So those were the two main elements from that first phase. And so we're kind of coming through here with a phase two of a more substantial size as far as kind of scope and length of the project. So kind of noting that our project is 26th, 27th, and 28th. Of those streets, 26 and 28 are on the city's high injury streets. And if you are not familiar with high injury streets, these are roadways within the city that we see substantially more severe and fatal crashes on, and that's whether it's vehicle, pedestrian, bicycle, or rolling in general. So 26 and 28 are on there. They're pretty long segments that are on there. We see a lot of speeding along these segments, and then we typically have kind of poor sight lines for people trying to cross the street, and it just makes unsafe conditions, especially at unsignalized locations. So just kind of generally what we know as far as, you know, how vehicles are kind of traveling through here and what the detriments are to other users. So a little bit of that background. So like I said, it's 26th, 27th, and 28th. We do have really two projects that kind of overlap for this, and so we're kind of combining them into one. And so obviously what we've been talking about is the safe routes. We have another project. It's called Highway Safety Improvement Program. It really doesn't have anything to do with highways. It's just that's just the name that the program is under. But it does include more of the signals, or I'm sorry, more of the intersections of this project. So in 26, it's Garfield, Harriet, Pleasant, Pillsbury, and then we kind of have a random intersection over at Stevens in 26. And then on 28th, it's Garfield, Harriet, Grand, Pleasant, Blaisdell, and Pillsbury. So generally, we really don't have a lot of intersections that are dealing with signals. It's mostly unsignalized locations. So we're really focused on those. We will obviously still look for upgrades at signalized locations, but generally those signals have been updated in more recent years, and we don't need to do the full rebuild, which can be very costly. So we're kind of thankful for that we can spend our money kind of elsewhere. So just kind of continuing on our background, I won't read through all of these, but generally, really what we want to do is put out improvements that are going to help people, not just for the school, but for the community in general, but to help people walk, bike, and roll through here along 26, 27, 28, also crossing those streets as well, which may certainly be more of kind of the issues that the people may run into. I know I've been out here and very recently I was at an event and I was trying to cross 28th and, you know, had some of my own issues trying to cross there. But so with that, you know, we're looking for ways, how can we create shorter distances as you're trying to cross the street? How do we also get vehicles to yield more often to people that are trying to cross the street? Oftentimes right now it can be fairly difficult to kind of get a gap to cross as the vehicles kind of just continue to move through. Visibility can be a challenge as a lot of people park pretty close to the intersection. And then generally we want to promote safe driving, and part of that is certainly lowering the vehicle speeds. And so we've done some data collection to date and are kind of analyzing what those speeds are as well. So how can we go about, you know, what the improvements are there to do? What could some of those improvements potentially be? And this certainly doesn't mean that this is what's going to go in or this is an exhaustive list. This is just generally, these are different things that we've done throughout the city. One aspect that I can say for certain would be ADA compliant pedestrian ramps. We absolutely want to install those. Wherever we don't have compliant ped ramps, those are really important for everyone trying to get around, especially for those with you know, that have needs, either visually or they're rolling or whatever it may be. Curb extensions, they can be pretty costly, so I think we have to be really cognizant of where we're looking for those, so we can kind of make sure that we're giving you know, important needs throughout these corridors and not just at a couple locations. Pedestrian refuge medians, similar to what you already see at Grand. Could be traffic circles. Those would really need to be on 27th. That those wouldn't necessarily be an option on 26th or 28th, along with the traffic diverters and speed humps. But raised crossings at certain locations, especially from the side street where the bikeway is, could certainly be something that is explored. Bikeway curb, that's something that we're certainly interested in, especially 26th and 28th with those existing bikeways. And that really means that kind of raised curb that's out in the street that gives that formal and permanent, you know, distance from the vehicles. And then we'll look at other ways. How can we continue to what we call daylight the intersection? And really that means how can we move vehicles away from the intersection so you can have clear sight lines. So a little bit of coordination here that we're doing, and there's actually a very exhaustive list of a lot of projects in this area, but of utmost importance is the Lindale Avenue reconstruction. That's obviously going to be taking on an approach kind of to Lindale, what 26th, 27th, and 28th look like. So we'll be coordinating with them to kind of get our designs in order. So we make sure that we have good continuity there. Franklin Avenue reconstruction. And then really what we're looking from both of those is just, are we going to detour people through here, no matter how you're trying to get around? So that's certainly a really important piece. We're aware of other projects. How can we kind of make things work smoothly for this neighborhood as well? So right now we are in phase 1 engagement, and you may have seen this image on the right. Maybe you've seen it up on some yard signs that are around on these roadways. Maybe you were at the really free market. I know I saw a couple of you there the other weekend, so hello again. So with this, we have 2 ways that we're engaging with people right now. And that is through Mapping Your Experiences, which is an online mapping tool. You can essentially go on there, you can drop down some points, kind of draw on that and say, this is the experience that I had. I struggle to cross the street here, or I witnessed this here, or maybe you're saying, you know, the improvements from phase 1 at these locations are great. Can we see more of this? So we're interested to get that feedback from you. Our other aspect is taking a survey. And so really what that focuses on is what's your comfort level and how safe do you feel, you know, on these corridors, no matter how you're using them. And we're also asking about how do you want to be engaged? What makes you comfortable to come to engagement? We recognize that, you know, there's a lot of Spanish speakers in this neighborhood as well, and it can be really difficult to kind of reach the BIPOC community. So we're hoping to get some feedback from those groups that would help them come out to this engagement that we're doing, or at least, you know, go online and give us some engagement, because they're certainly a part of this community. We want to make sure that we're hearing their voices and this is working for them as well, and not just people that are historically comfortable doing outreach with us. So I will note that while I'm showing the English here, we have translated all of our materials to also provide Spanish to try and make this as easy as possible for everybody. So we've done a little pop-up engagement as well. As I mentioned, we did the really free market. We're here tonight. We're going to Latino Heritage event, kind of hosted by the school on September 26th. So we're really starting to get into different ways that we're engaging with the community right now. We have some one-pagers. We have our website up. So we have a lot of different aspects kind of in the fire right now and kind of working through, and we'll continue to identify events as the year goes on, especially with the school on how we can get to them. So kind of getting close to the end here, schedule wise. So right now, overall, we're in that concept development and engagement. So we've been doing data collection. We're still in that process. We've kicked off that phase 1 engagement where, you know, we're trying to get the word out about the project and introducing people to it, very similar to what we're doing here with you all tonight. We're collecting that feedback through those lived experiences on that map. And getting that feedback through that survey as well. And then we'll use that to move ourselves towards a 15% concept. And that's where we say, okay, we've heard what the community has been telling us. We're understanding what the issues are. We're coming at this from a data aspect as well. And so in phase 2 engagement, we will develop out that 15% concept, present that to the community, ask, hey, are we getting this right? Is this what we're hearing from you? We'll continue to refine that. And that'll lead us to really early 2025, where we have the 30% recommended concept. And so we'll get to that point. We'll really spend the rest of 2025 in engineering, where they'll kind of take concept to something that can actually be physically built. And we will start construction in 2026. So it's a pretty quick moving process. So I think you'll see quite a bit of us either through here or through other engagement events as we kind of move this process pretty quickly kind of through up to that recommended concept aspect. And with that, so again, I'm Christian Zimmerman. I am the project manager of this project. My email is there. Andrew is helping out on this project as well. His email is listed there. We can certainly add our information into the chat. And Maggie, I know we've been in contact, so we can certainly continue to kind of email back and forth as we get, you know, just different items. So I want to leave time for people to kind of ask any questions or provide any comments, feedback that they may have at this point.
Thanks, Christian, appreciate it. This is really great. I live right on 26th in Garfield, so this is awesome to hear because it was pretty bad to drive, to walk, to cross the street, to do anything. I do love the bump outs in front of the new school. It's very narrow though. I see a lot of cars hitting the curb or going over the curb as they're turning, but outside of that, it works really well. I'm curious about your community engagement plan. Are you guys like door knocking or flyering in the area, like within a certain radius of the streets so that people know about the project and can provide input and meet the people where they're at versus having people come to you during pop-up events or anything like that?
Yeah, absolutely. Great question. So we have direct mailers that are being sent out this week. So everyone is going to receive those. I think we've got around like 1,700 or so that are going out. So every resident should be receiving that kind of within kind of the project area, and we've extended that, you know, north and south a little bit as well. So so the community should certainly be aware of those with that direct mailer, and on those we provided our website, our contact, and then also how they can get involved in the project with those links to get to the survey and to the mapping. So we're hoping you know, that's an easy tool for everyone. Those have been translated as well. So so we've started with that, and as we go through this, you know, we'll identify more aspects of, as we're kind of moving through, do we want to send out mailers again to invite people to something specific, or to go back online with a new tool that we've introduced? We'll kind of figure that out as we go, but in this first phase, yeah, that's kind of where we're at. And we're hoping that that those yard signs that we've put out along all 3 streets, you know, we've put them through the park too, because we know, you know, a lot of families are going to the park and at the playground and aspects like that. I think something that we'll be interested in is partnering with the school. Maybe we do some kind of other groups have done it where it's kind of like a little clip of information that you kind of give to the kids, and a lot of times you clip it on their backpack. We use like the teachers and stuff will do that, and they kind of take that home to their parents. So that could be an option. I know other projects have done that, so that could be kind of a fun way to involve the kids and the parents, where they get to take something home from school.
Yeah, I think it'd be good to get the parents' opinions on this, since they are the ones dropping off the kids to school, but it's just plays a role. I was telling Ryan earlier of like traffic calming in general in the neighborhood, and I think that plays a role for both certain streets and traffic calming measures. Thoughts? Yeah.
I'm just wondering, if Blaisdell was ever considered as another avenue for traffic calming measures. It's, I don't know, I can't say whether it's as dangerous as 26 or 28, but the sightlines are really bad. There's pretty crazy speeding all the time. It seems like every other day now, the police are called out for a confrontation between bikers and drivers, and yeah, I don't know. And I live, there's school age children in my building, so yeah, I was just wondering if that's maybe on the horizon or was considered.
Yeah, so we have, with this project, we have pretty strict limits because of where our funding is tied to. So we're really tied to the intersections and those corridors that we identified. So we don't get into, you know, that north-south corridor of Blaisdell itself with this project. The city has received kind of grant money through Safe Streets for All, which is going to be addressing you know, traffic calming and just traffic safety throughout the city on a lot of many of our corridors. I could follow back up with you if you'd like to provide your information on whether or not Safe Streets for All is identified for Blaisdell. I'm not sure if there is enough, if there's a different project identified for Blaisdell at this time, but Safe Streets for All might be, and I could follow up with you if you'd like.
Yeah, for sure. I can probably I'll email you.
Okay.
Good question. A lot of other streets still need work too, but this is the start.
I mean, there is a school, the Wildflower Preschool on the Calvary Church at 26 in Blaisdell.
Yeah.
So, yeah, when you talk about schools, that's also a great.
Yeah.
Great region.
Others? No, Ryan? I was about to say, Ryan, you don't have anything to say or to add to this?
Hey, Christian, thanks for coming. This is all really great and exciting news. Couple of thoughts. We've been chatting, Christian, a while back about possibly looking at how to improve some of the bike access to the school. Specifically, maybe converting at least temporarily 26 bikeway to 2-way. Wondering how that might fit into this project, if there's a space for a demonstration, or at least some of the concrete that gets poured doesn't preclude something like that in the future.
Yeah. Hey, Ryan, nice to see you. So in years past, for a couple years now, MnDOT has done a demonstration project, kind of a grant, where it's a competitive grant where you apply, and if you get it, then they kind of ask you, what are you looking to do? So I haven't heard yet. It's usually around the end of the year when they kind of introduce it. So I haven't heard yet if they are going to still have that grant available this year. If they do, I think that's an opportunity that we could apply for that and look at an opportunity of what we may want to explore, whether it's it's usually not something where it's super long. I will say the biggest one I think they did was actually Green Central Safe Routes to School, if you're familiar. So that was like 4 or 5 blocks. So that was kind of like the longest linear one that they had done before. So I think we'd have to be strategic on what we're looking for, if that's, you know, if they have it and if we're successful in getting it. So it could certainly be something that we use in the toolbox to help us understand what may work and honestly what doesn't work. So, and that's kind of how we use the Green Central one, is to generally it worked, but we learned some things by putting it out there too. So it's a really great tool to have.
I would just put out that I see people riding the wrong way,
Oh, yeah.
not every day, but a lot of days. I
Agreed.
mean, it's a very centrally located facility in the neighborhood that really wants to be used more than one way. Another question, and I'll put a bunch of stuff on the map, so I don't bore you with my comments tonight. There are other, at least all ages bike routes planned in the neighborhood, so for Pleasant Avenue, I think is the neighborhood greenway designation. I mean, how are these things going to be planned around with that future? Or how do the other things that are on the map that aren't funded play into how this project would be designed?
Yeah, I think that's a great question. So yeah, right. Pleasant is, you know, kind of similar to Bryan Avenue on the other side of Lindale, kind of one of those bike boulevards. So kind of has that designation as, you know, something that we want to do. We haven't really identified a project for it yet. So with this, it's really about you know, how much can we set that project up and make sure that we kind of stay out of the way of what may come in the future, but at the same time, we don't want to just skip over the intersection and not do anything. We want to make sure that, you know, we're providing space to make that a good location and how it ties in the future. I think we're going to be internally start to review our AAA network as we kind of reach the 5-year point of the tap with our AAA network. So I think we're gonna maybe start to look at that as we get to that halfway point and say, you know, where are we with some of those things? So that'll certainly be a conversation that we want to have with however that goes, of understanding, you know, how that moves things up and down, and do things get prioritized differently as we go through. So we will certainly still make improvements at that location. It's kind of similar to, let's make sure we don't kind of put ourselves into a corner, but we need to make sure that we make improvements though.
Awesome. Any others? Right. That. Thanks, Christian. Appreciate your time and thank you for sharing this. And send us a presentation too, so that we have it, and so you can just include it as part of the meeting minutes so that others can see it. So
Awesome. Yeah. Thank you all. Have a good night.
you too.
Thank you.
All right, last agenda item before we move on to general announcements. Zero waste, or they're not on yet, so we're gonna skip that agenda item for today. It seems like, unless they join before we end. But general announcements and updates, if you want to share screen again, we
I
can
can take care of that.
go through that. Well, I have it up, but I just want people to see it.
Yeah, there it is. Okay.
Pillsbury Ave, Midtown Greenway, open house. That's for the new bridge, right? Construction. So there is an open house that is happening here. It's located it's at Thursday, September 19th. That's in a couple of days at 5 p.m. At the Whittier Rec Center, multi-purpose room. So right where this project is, was discussing, so right in front of that school. So if anybody is interested, that bridge is getting replaced, and so they're just having an engagement.
Slow traffic.
It says project overview, the Milwaukee Bridges I think they were
Okay.
focusing on the bridge.
Yeah, it's only the bridge only, but they haven't they don't have the plans yet.
Oh, okay.
This is the beginning engagement project, but if you want to probably give input, would be the time. So yeah. this is the beginning of the community engagement process.
There's gonna be a lot of these.
Yeah, all those bridges need to be replaced, so. Next thing is, tot lot renaming, so the tot lot is gonna get renamed and there is like, I believe like, people are submitting their names,
you want me to
what they
talk
think it should be, yeah.
Yeah, so we partnered with the Minnesota Park Boards and Rec to help rename the tot lot. As you can hear, that sounds very like only for little kiddos, little toddlers to go enjoy the park. This park will also be getting a skate park, which is a huge conversation we had at our last housing and land use about reallocating funds. So to be more inclusive and to tell people that there is a skate park here and it is for all ages, they decided to rename the park. So we have a little survey here. I have the QR code, like, yeah, the QR code here, and I'm sorry, you can't read the link. Right now you can. So this first, all of September, you can submit names of what you would like this park to be renamed. Some have, what's the name? They put like skate park is pretty simple. But then the first one, sorry.
Super basic.
Yeah, super,
There is more than just a skate park.
yes, there is more than a skate park, but second round. Yes, exactly. And then October, we'll be voting on the names to submit, to narrow down that list of names that were submitted. And then in spring of 2025, when the grand opening happens, the name will be revealed. So if you have any cool names that you would like this park to be named, please scan the QR code. Please don't name it after yourself or anybody in the neighborhood, as that process will be extremely difficult to get a park named after somebody. So
Oh, I was
please,
gonna name it, George Park.
I would strongly disagree with you. And if you have any other questions,
Names that shouldn't be, we submit.
I'll be reviewing that list,
Please
so
stop.
please, oh yeah. One of these.
So,
I'll cut it.
Megan, you mentioned or referenced the park board has a policy about how to name parks, and if it's after a name, there's this huge, years-long process. Do they have any guidance for naming parks that aren't people's names?